Hey, this is Brett. Here to talk again a little bit about changing careers, transitions, and that sort of thing. And the first thing I wanted to talk about substantively is financial considerations. And really, what does it take to get to the point where you can decide financially that you can move on to the next phase of your career, your life, your whatever. So what we're going to talk about today is mostly budgeting and building a buffer and those sorts of things, and we'll get to some of the other fun stuff in later posts. But for now, let's talk about financial considerations and just having the confidence to even start going down this road. So a couple years ago, that's when I really first started thinking about changing my career. It wasn't because I was upset with my job or my coworkers or my supervisors, although there were some that weren't awesome, but I think everyone can kind of relate to that. But by and large, I was generally happy with my career. But I always felt a pull to do something different. I felt a pull to go into education and teaching the next generation of workers, whether it was high school or community college or what have you. But anytime I felt that pull and a part of my brain said, yeah, let's do this, let's figure it out, a larger part of my brain would say, no, that means we're going to take a substantial pay cut, about 50% pay cut, just to get in the door in education. And that was a lofty estimation. So my brain would shut it down immediately and I wouldn't pursue it. And that's a fool's errand, because I didn't ever actually do the research to see if me taking that pay cut would affect, if we could succeed with me taking that pay cut. My brain just shut it down immediately and said, no, you can't do it. And that's why I believe that the financial considerations, not necessarily planning at the outset, is the most important, because I shut myself down for several years before my wife finally said, look, man, you kind of want to do this, because I know that you're trending down in your happiness and that sort of thing, and I know that you really want to do this. Why don't you do it? And I said, well, we can't afford it. And she said, well, how do you know? And I don't know. You just can't. I'm just going to take a pay cut. So she said, well, you got to think about it, and you have to come to an agreement with yourself as to whether or not you want to pursue this and how you want to do it. Because it's been a couple years now, and I'm tired of hearing about your talk. Let's do something. So I thought about it for a good period of time, and I kept hitting the same barriers. I can't afford it. We might need a new car. We might need this. We might need that. What happens if a tornado comes through our house, or whatever the case may be? And I finally realized that I was wholly incapable of providing financial analysis on our situation as to whether or not I could change my career, take a pay cut, and the family would still be well taken care of. So after a strong period of time, I realized I can't. I have to recuse myself. I have to put our budget into the hands of someone that I trusted. I can't do the analysis, because I will always, even if I could say, all right, we can succeed on this annual salary, then, well, then we can't do that. And then I would shut it down. So I became aware that I could not do it. Mathematically, certainly, yes, I'm capable of doing budgets. Technically, I'm well versed with Microsoft Excel and the whole suite of Microsoft Office products. But mentally, I couldn't do it. I couldn't get from point A to point B. So again, I decided to recuse myself and put my trust in my wife. Now, my wife has an engineering degree, teaches high school math. She's very good with numbers and very detailed. So she was someone that I trusted. It doesn't have to be a spouse. It could be anyone. It could be any trusted friend that you believe can give you back information that you can review with a bottom line and go from there. So that's what we did. I farmed it out to my wife. I did not pay her for this, so she was doing accounting work pro bono, and the numbers that she came up with worked, and it was very detailed, even down to the level where she had budgeted for cat food. We have 2 cats, and the cats need to eat, so she even incorporated that into the budget, and went back and reviewed months, if not years, of bank statements and credit card statements and that sort of thing. So the numbers were very sound, and because she had cleared those hurdles for me as far as mental blockage, I was able to objectively look at the numbers and say, okay, now we can play ball. This seems good. So we got there and started thinking, okay, so what does this really mean? Well, it means that our budget is our budget is going to be different, of course, and our family life is going to have to change slightly. What changes do we need to make this budget fit? Carry out, going to restaurants, recreational activities. Can we live with this? Because it makes no sense to say, oh great, we have a budget, let's go ahead and do this right now without testing it out first. So what we did was we overlaid our current financial situation with the new budget, and we determined where we can cut and where we can't, and what we needed to cut. And then we decided to take a period, it was about 6 months, where we lived under the new budget to see if it worked. And it did. Worked great. In fact, we were under budget for most of the months during the testing phase. Now, we had to recognize that because we were doing this focused and doing it with like a real strong motivation to make it work, that the budget might swell, our spending might swell a little bit. Because after 6 months of, yeah, let's make this work because we really want it to work, yeah, maybe once we did it, we found that we were missing things that we really needed and that we couldn't afford. Not foundational things like food and shelter and that sort of thing, but nights out, dates out, concerts, what have you. So we had to have a real strong accounting for that, and making sure that we weren't just doing this to do this. We were doing this and it really could work. And we got to the point where it did. So we had some, we built in some leeway there with the understanding that we were trying to make it work, like I said. And it still worked. Even with that leeway, even with that margin of error, we still got to it. And that's the evaluating results part of this. So I realized I couldn't budget on my own. I mean, I can, but I couldn't from a mental point of view. I farmed out the budgeting. We got the results back. We integrated a margin of error for our budget. And then after that, we started evaluating everything, and it looked good. So I guess the major point for the financial considerations part is not necessarily planning for college for your kids if you have them, or vacations or something like that, big vacations, retirement, so on and so forth. That is absolutely important, and we will absolutely talk about that going down the road. But before this whole process, before the whole idea of changing your career or changing something major in your life, like where you live, you have to be comfortable with the idea that this can work. And only then can you start going to what will be the next segment on this channel. Then you can go into the details. I want to live in Denver. Great. So I can, budget it out and see if that's even feasible. Now that I see that it's feasible, then I can say, okay, well, what am I going to do in Denver to make the money that I need to make? Where am I going to live in Denver? Those are the fun things. The fun things are looking at job postings in the area that you want to work or the area you want to live. But first, you can't even do that until you get to the point where you know that you can do it. As long as it fits in these parameters that you set at the initial phase, the financial considerations, then you've already set yourself on a good... I think a lot of it applies to changing where you're living and major life changes as well. So I'll kind of tack that on a little bit as we go. But again, the idea is financial considerations first, then you can have fun, and then we can start worrying about focusing on financial planning and training. I am coming from a job that is very different from a job in education, so it's up to me to start training and getting certified and doing that sort of thing. So we'll talk about that as well. But the main point of this particular post is financial considerations out first. Look, I want to go somewhere. I want to do something different. Can I do it? And can I trust myself to give the right numbers to help me make a great, solid, sound decision? I couldn't. I would always hit that hurdle and I would just keep going. So I learned to farm it out, give it to someone that I trusted, and then we got the numbers back, and here we are now, obviously, because I have this YouTube channel. So to close, and I'm very hesitant to kind of end on a slightly negative note, but it's important to remember that sometimes if you do it yourself, or you pass it off to a trusted friend, coworker, spouse, whomever, the numbers might not work, and it might be a negative result, and the budget might just say, you know what, you can't do it right now. And there's nothing wrong with that. And even in a negative, there can be a positive. You can learn where to kind of shave off some of your expenses and where to save more money. Maybe you can enroll in some programs with your bank or something like that to really manage where your money's going. And if you can cut down now, as soon as you get that negative result, then you can start building a buffer. So, $25 a month, $30, $300, whatever the case may be, you're starting to build a buffer. And if you can get a solid, several months or year or whatever works for you of additional savings, then you kind of have that in the bank, literally, not just figuratively. And that'll help you, again, if this is where you really want to go, it might take 6 months, it might take a year, then this sort of exercise will still help you get there. It just won't be immediate. So after you budget, if the numbers don't work, figure out where you can cut back, start banking that additional savings, and then retry your budget, give it a test trial, see if it works for a couple months, 3 to 6, and if it does, then you're there. So regardless of whether you can do it now or do it later, at least you know where you need to go. And when I was at first going through this, when I was constantly telling myself that there's no way we could do this, there's no way we could do this, I even if we couldn't have done it, I had no idea of what I needed to do. So a negative result is not awesome, of course. Positive is always better, somewhat by definition. But the idea that going down this road, going through this exercise, you can learn more about who you are and what your spending levels are, what your savings levels are, means all the difference. In maybe you don't get there now, but you get there soon. So I hope that helps, and I hope to talk to y'all later. If you can spare a second to subscribe or give a comment, I would love it. Subscriptions obviously help with viewership, and believe me, I'm not making a dime off of this, so it's not about that. It's about pushing out alternative perspectives and helping anyone that might want or need help in thinking about massive transitions in a different way. So I thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it, and I hope to talk to you soon. Thanks.